life. And so I'm now sitting next to the rabbi. And this guy couldn't be any more different than me. I'm 6'3". This guy was like 5 feet and a smidgen. I'm black, he's white. I am very good looking. I could not tell he had so much hair over his face. I couldn't tell what he was like. So I sit down to this guy stiff as a board. And now I'm like sitting there and he is drunk. And he puts a bottle of vodka in front of me and says, "Welcome, drink." And I said, "Sir, I don't drink alcohol." And he taught me my first Hebrew words, kiso, kaso, queso. I think I'm butchering them a little bit, but one of them is, he said, you can't, according to Judaism, you don't judge people until you know them in these 3 ways. One of them means purse, which means how they are with the money. One of them means anger, how they are when they're angry. And one of them means cup, how they are when they're drunk. And he goes, "I don't know who you are, but I will never know your true soul unless you drink with me." and I'm like, what kind of religion is this? It's like, they're just pushing the alcohol here. And I said, "Rabbi," I said, "you've had enough alcohol for the 2 of us." I said, he goes, "But I have the alcohol tolerance of a small water buffalo." And so we laughed, and before you knew it, I was diffused. And before you knew it, we're talking and we're laughing. And before you knew it, I just felt this connection with this guy. This word started welling up in me. I don't know what the word is, but somehow my mind, my non-Jewish mind just finds this word in my mind that I'm feeling towards this guy, this sense of affection, this sense of connection. And all I could say is, this is beshert. And so before you know it, I'm wearing a kippah. I am dancing with the Torah until he tells me not to drop it. And I said, "Why?" He said, "I'll have to fast." And I never fumbled at football at Stanford. 4 years, never fumbled. But I handed off immediately to the small Jewish guy to my right. And I love this. I left Oxford, left the L'Chaim Society, and I'm walking down High Street in Oxford. A friend of mine sees me, I'm glowing, and they say, "Let's have lunch tomorrow. I want to hear about what just happened to you." And we sat down, and I remember I'm sitting down with a bunch of other Jewish friends of mine, non-Jewish friends of mine. They were black friends of mine, but they start castigating me, and they said, "Do you know who you were with?" And I said, "No, who was I with? I thought they were the Chabad family." And they said, "No, you were with Lubavitchers." I'm like, "Lubavitchers, fine." They go, "No, these people are crazy." I started filling my head, so I said, I heard all this stuff. So I left the table, and I went immediately, I said, "I'm going to go back and find the rabbi. People told me all these things about him. I want to look him in the eye because this is my beshert." And I sat down with the rabbi, and this was a moment of change for my life, because I said, "Look, I heard some things about you, and can we talk?" And we sat and actually talked and talked and talked, 3 hours of talking. And then at the end, I realized that he and I didn't agree on everything, but that we made a commitment to love. And love is actually knowing and understanding someone. And so what we decided to do is that we would start exchanging books. And so I gave him a book, and he gave me a book. I'm embarrassed to say, I gave him a book, Malcolm X's autobiography. He gave me a book, I'm embarrassed to say, a Rhodes Scholar in Oxford, and I'd never read a book by this author. The first book he gave me was Night by Elie Wiesel. And before you knew it, we were ripping into the books. We weren't finishing them in weeks, we were finishing them in days. Before you knew it, I was so fulfilled by what I was reading, I said, "Give me more. Give me books on Maimonides and Hillel." And before you knew it, I started studying Torah with him. And I started coming back on Friday nights and bringing friends of mine. Friends that wondered why I was hanging out with the Chabad family. Friends of mine that were Jews and non-Jews, Christians, Muslims. We were all going to have Friday night dinners. Friends of mine who were Jewish and like, "You're going to a Chabad house?" I said, "I got to see this. I'm going to go. I've never even lit a Shabbat candle, but I just want to see you there." And before you knew it, as the year went on, studying more and more Torah, having more and more friends studying Torah with me, by the end of the year, it became the 2nd largest student group in all of Oxford University. And Shmuley, who is his name, looks at me and says, at the end of the year, he goes, "Judaism is not an insular faith, Corey. Judaism is a faith that has a mission." This is why I love Judaism. It's not trying to convert people. It's trying to tikkun olam, trying to heal the world. He said, Judaism is a faith of values. And you embody these values. And he said, I've got a question for you. And he said, would you be the president of this Chabad house? And I said, you are crazy. But I have an affinity for crazy men. And I said, no. And we argued, and I said, I'll do it if you have a Jewish co-president. And so I became, the first time in the history of humanity, a black goy head of a Chabad house. And now, it didn't stop there. I left England and I went to Yale University, and Shmuley introduced me to another rabbi, Rabbi Hecht, this amazing man of wisdom and passion. And Rabbi Hecht, his first name is Shmuley too, and I was fulfilling a Chinese blessing, may you live to know 2 Shmuleys. And we started the High Society at Yale, that now is the Eliezer Society, and it now has become one of the larger, more vibrant student organizations on campus as well. And so, for me, Jewish education has become a passion for me. And when I say Jewish education, I'm not talking about reading and writing and arithmetic. Look, I think quality education is the critical element to American society. I tell you right now, we are in danger of having the first generation of Americans who has children that have lower literacy rates than we do. We have a lot of challenges in our nation right now. Lower literacy rates, higher obesity rates, greater health care costs. I mean, the next generation, there is a crisis in our country. And this is precisely the reason in my heart of hearts that we need people like my father told me to do, that are willing to stand up for who they are. Abraham Lincoln said, everyone is born an original, but sadly most die copies. We don't need any more copies. And so what I believe in my heart of hearts is this world desperately needs Jews who understand the power and the strength and the wisdom, and most importantly, the urgency for Jewish values, for Jewish ideals. And this world is bereft of those contributions that are needed from the Jewish community. Now, let me be clear now. Let me slip back to where the rabbi left off, trying to one-up me. This is a wonderful, wonderful last week Torah portion. And I still talk to, I now have numerous rabbis, because it's like, Chabad's rough, because as soon as I left Yale, I met Chabad Newark. Chabad is like, Jersey, we like that. Once they got you, we're not letting go. So I still try to study Torah. We still have some folks that come into City Hall and actually study Torah with some of my staff. And amazingly, this Vayetze had a part that just confused me. Think about this. There's a dream that Jacob has, and then after the dream, he makes this pledge to God. Some of you know what I'm talking about. It's a very transactional pledge. He says, if you give me this and this and this and this, then I'm going to make you my one true God. I'm going to be a great child of God. If you give me bread to eat, clothes for my family, so on and so forth. And it was very confusing to me, and this was a discussion we had this week, is why would this great patriarch have this transactional moment with God? And it's amazing, as we discuss this, Maimonides has this great, great commentary on this part. That actually, it really wasn't about just give me X and I'll do Y. It was more about talking about the responsibility that I will manifest if you give me resources, if you give me wealth, if you give me success, then I will better be able to do your will, God, and manifest what it really means to be religious. And that's the point I really want to end with. Is here we have a room of folks who, like me, we all drink deeply from wells of freedom and liberty and opportunity that we did not dig. All of us eat lavishly from banquet tables that were prepared for us by our ancestors. All of us are the result of a conspiracy of love beyond our imagination. We will never be called to the levels of courage and sacrifice of our ancestors. And so the question is, what do we do with the wealth and abundance that has been afforded to us? And I say more than ever, It's like Jacob, that there is an obligation now more than ever. Because if you are standing up for who you are and say that I am Jewish, religion is not just about rote routine, reciting, going to a building and standing. That is not the call of Judaism. In fact, Judaism is a strange faith because it calls for values often even put above God himself. Think about this. Moses comes down from the mountain and God says, I'm going to smite these people who are worshiping, and I'm going to give you, Moses, I'm going to give you a more people that worship. And Moses says, no, you do not smite these people. If you smite these people, ma cheni nami sifreka. If you smite these people, then erase me from your book. Here it is, Abraham standing before Sodom and Gomorrah, arguing with God. What kind of faith celebrates figures that actually get into arguments with God himself? Won't the God of mercy, of justice, show mercy and justice? In Judaism, the highest calling is to do just that, to heal this world, to put goodness, tzedakah, chesed, kindness, the pursuit of justice. And if that is the highest calling of the faith, and we are to proclaim ourselves as members of that faith, then it doesn't take words, it takes commitment. And so today you're gathered here, for me, the greatest commitment of all, to not only preserve the faith, but to take our children and send them out into the world and let them be beacons of that faith through how they live and how they give, by how they love and how they contribute. If a school like this does not have an ambition, if it cannot grow, if it cannot succeed, then we and you have not fulfilled your calling. If you cannot love children that are not your own and seed within them all the nurturing that they need to grow and blossom and bear fruit unto this world, then we have failed. If we are not willing to sacrifice all that it takes to ensure that, then who are we? If I'm not for myself, who will be for me? If I am only for myself, then what am I? This is the Jewish way. And so I stand before you today with a bold-faced ask. This community in the Lehigh Valley, what will the truth be that you tell unto the world? Nothing you say with your lips will be satisfactory. It is what you show this world, what you demonstrate through your actions. Can this community create a school that reflects its values, that reflects its ideals, and that prepares its children not to partake in this world, but to lead it? This is your calling. 10 years from now, will this community be the same as it is today? Or will it rise to the challenge of the times? So I call on you in a very bold-faced, unapologetic way to today let this be a historic moment. Let this be the time that a small group representative of the community says that we will pull together and we're going to create something special. We're going to be ambitious. We're going to create a school that, like my father was called my brother and I to do, that stands up for who we are as a community. That we will be a school that answers the calling of the prophet to be a light unto nations. That we will be a school that becomes the hope that this world so desperately needs. I wish you the best in this. And to the school and all those who are involved, I simply give you two words: Yasher Kolah.